Hello, good morning, and welcome to NewsFile. This is your most authoritative news analysis platform. And as you know, as always, here on NewsFile, we put Ghana first. The ministerial vetting. What are the letdowns and what are your highs in the process? Who will you approve or disapprove? Is that exercise really necessary? And Ghana is faced with a whopping $134 million judgment debt. Another $55 million is likely as a Chinese company takes Ghana to the International Court of Arbitration. Question: when will this business of judgment debts stop? Who do we hold for these judgment debts? We set up a committee that brought out a report suggesting we will see the end of it. So why are we here now? Is this a sign of bad governance? President Akufo-Addo, candidate then, promised that the way to end judgment debt was to vote out John Mahama. We will also be looking at very important issue, particularly on this one, and the election petition hearing. John Mahama so far has lost 7 applications, or if you like, some things that they sought to have and were denied. But in the public opinion, is this really the case that they have been winning on one particular issue, compelling Jean Mensah to testify? We'll be right back to deal with the vexed matters. You're welcome. This is NewsFile. It's your most authoritative news analysis platform, and here on NewsFile, we put Ghana first. And it's brought to you by Bank of Africa, as strong as a group and close as a partner. MTN, everywhere you go. Ashasi University, educating ethical and entrepreneurial leaders for Africa. Duraflash, where Duraflash goes, water flows. Having mosquito spray and coil, pleasant on humans, tough nightmare on insects. And Upper Foods is tasty. Dubious Industries and Robert & Sons Limited Obstacle Services, your comprehensive eye care services provider. Now, to my take, which I now call Ayenini Legal Light. Ghana law prohibits homosexuality? That's my question. I am back to this subject. It is the most appropriate time with news about LGBTQI, that's a mouthful, presence in Ghana, whatever that means. The Catholic Bishops' Conference has issued a statement giving education why it must not be tolerated and seeking to know the president's stance. And this is not the first time. The Minister-designate for Gender and Social Protection fell into the often repeated error when she told the Appointments Committee of Parliament that homosexuality is prohibited in Ghana by law. Many, including political leaders, have always referred to the same Section 104(1)(b) of the Criminal Offences Act to make the inaccurate assertion. The provision of that law, borrowed in 1960 from those who are now changing it, declares that, quote, a person who has unnatural carnal knowledge of another person of not less than 16 years of age with the consent of that other person commits a misdemeanor, unquote. Get this. What it criminalizes is unnatural carnal knowledge. What then is meant by unnatural carnal knowledge in law? The only definition is what we inherited from the same people. Unnatural carnal knowledge at common law means penile penetration of anything other than the vagina. Consequently, this law only prohibits a man from putting his penis into anything other than a woman's vagina for sex. If a man engaged in a sexual act with another man, he will be guilty and may suffer the maximum penalty of 3 years in jail. Dr. Ali Gabas is serving a 25-year jail term for sodomizing a 16-year-old boy. If a woman engaged in a sexual act with another woman, call it lesbianism or whatever, she will not be guilty of the offense. Again, is a man or a woman engaged in whatever they call sex with a man or a woman caught by this law where there is no penile penetration? What acts are homosexuals or LGBTQI people engaged in? I leave that to what you know or can imagine. It appears the law criminalized one thing and left everything else related to LGBTQI or did not anticipate LGBTQI. We better start thinking what to do and fast. That's your legal light. Let me welcome my guests, and then we get to look at the issues that we have to canvass for you this morning. We are looking at judgment debts, we are looking at ministerial vettings, and we are looking at the election petition so far. My guests, joining us by Zoom, Dr. Ernest Kofi Abochi, he's Dean, UPSA Law Faculty. Also joining us by Zoom will be Kofi Bento, lawyer and Senior Vice President, Imani Africa. Here in the studio right now are Inusa Fuseni, lawyer and member National Democratic Congress, NDC. He's a former MP and a former minister. Also, Dr. Poku Dusay, member New Patriotic Party, NPP, Legal and Communications team. Gentlemen, here in the studio and on Zoom, good morning and welcome to NewsFile.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great. So we are beginning with the vetting that has happened so far, and quite a number of people have gone through, but we do not know what the report to Parliament will be, whether anybody will be rejected, or whether there will be anything that will be demanded of anybody. Let's show you just one bit, so just a bit of some excerpts, and have our guest comment on the vetting. Is it really necessary? That's the most important question.
Media Foundation for West Africa, is that the name? Based its report on wrongful analysis of whatever information that they have. They were wrong, they drew their own conclusions to it, and they said whatever they wanted to say. I referred whatever communication I receive from any entity to the regulator to respond to, and I believe the regulator did so.
You mean that it is NCA that wrote to you telling you that Media Foundation for West Africa had based the analysis on wrong information, or your office did that?
If the court says that any entity without valid authorization ought to be sanctioned in accordance with the law, and the Media Foundation for West Africa claims that that is an infringement on the right of free expression. They have a problem with the decision of the court, not with the action of the regulator or the directives of the minister. And they also need to get their facts aligned with the situation on the ground. Every action that the NCA took was in accordance with the decision of the tribunal and their regulations. So that can, by no stretch of the imagination, be claimed as infringing upon the rights of any entity in this country. If that's the conclusion they arrived at, they were wrong.
The government of Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo had created approximately 1 million jobs. And even though I don't have the exact figures for end of 2020, the last time we reported on was in September 2020, and then the figure was around 3 million jobs. 3 million jobs. Yes.
How was the 3 million jobs created and the distribution? You want to share the statistics with us, sector by sector?
I will make the details available to the committee when I get back to you. But I think that I have, on a number of occasions, even come to this House and have given these figures out already. But if still it is the pleasure of the committee to have the details, I'm more than willing to.
And Chairman, another clarification: the 3 million jobs, public sector or private sector, or a combination of the two?
Combination of all.
The nominee said in September the government has created 3 million jobs. On 13th August, the Vice President also said that the government has created 2 million jobs. 2 million jobs. 13th August. That was what the Vice President said, that the government has created 2 million jobs. And you're also saying that in September, you have created 3 million jobs. Is it that between August and September, you created additional 1 million jobs?
Well, I don't know, and I'm not aware of what you're talking of, but I have officially turned out the 3 billion jobs, and I will be prepared to defend the 3 million at any point in time, that when I get the opportunity.
I have deep respect for our chieftaincy institution, for that matter, our traditional rulers, and I've intimated here the role they have in ensuring that we have an enduring local government system, and how we should allow them to take serious part in it. I've also talked about how the work His Excellency assigned to us in this regional reorganization, which is a very delicate assignment. We could succeed in doing that because of how the chiefs throughout the country supported us and rely on their wisdom and direction. But having said that, it's unfortunate that I will have to state that this allegation is coming out of a deep misunderstanding or it has no basis at all. The process of creating new regions is enshrined in the Constitution. And on a different question, I made reference to Chapter 2 of the Constitution, Article 5, 4 and 5. And Article 5 states clearly the process you go through when you are creating a new region or when you are merging two regions.
Ghana pays the lowest rate in the whole world. Ghana, we pay the lowest rate in the whole world. So if you want to go...
You say rate in what?
Yes, toll rate.
Oh, okay, toll rate.
If you want to go BOT, OOT, or whatever rate as you see in other parts of the world, the research that has been done in my ministry on the average toll rate is around $1. And Ghana, $1 is close to
6 cedis. But here, people pay 50 pesos for toll rate. And if I am giving the approval, it's one of the things I'm going to do immediately. And it has to go to cabinet first, proposal of increasing the toll rate, and it will come to this honorable house. And I believe all of you, everybody here will support it, and Ghanaians will also accept it.
Right, so those are just a few of those who appeared before the committee. You know several others who appeared before the committee. So starting with you, Kofi Bento, what would you say about the process itself, those MPs who form the committee and their performance, whether they are doing the right thing, they are doing good enough or they are not, and the appointees who appeared, the nominees who appeared, if any specific ones you want to also comment about, that will be fine. But let me begin by sharing this small piece of going to the town, the writings of P.A.V. Ansah, the writings of P.A.V. Ansah. And in chapter 12 of his book, he has a title, The Shameful, Shoddy, Shabby Charade, Misnomered Vetting. And he took issue with a very poor vetting process that went on with the intention of letting someone off by perhaps not inquiring into issues that were to the disfavor of that person. In a committee, Parliament's account vetting committee, appointment committee, as chaired by Ibn Chambers then. Yes, Kofi Bento, let's hear you. Hello, Kofi Bento. Please unmute.
Hello, Samson, do you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Hello?
I can hear you now. Let's go.
It's unmuted.
Yeah, so let's go. You can be heard now.
It's unmuted. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Right. The process, quickly, the process is fine. And as you can tell, we've been using this process since the Fourth Republic started. Now, the content, what goes on, at every point, there is, one way or something that, somebody wants to complain about. The only thing I find needful, something that we need to do regarding the process, is to make sure that we give the persons who have been appointed the questions ahead of the vetting. I feel very strongly about it. It is possible that before the vetting comes, there's a schedule. We know who is coming. Members on the committee should staff and do it. And at least each person should send maybe 4 or so questions. Okay, it doesn't mean you have to ask all of them, but at least the main questions you want to ask, if you want some information about something that happened in the past, and a few things, whether the person was already in office or not, we should send the questions to these people so they prepare and come and give answers according to the information that they have, especially people who were in office and are being returned to office. So I think we should seriously look at that. It is giving them room to say, I'm not aware, to say, let me go and... So we should make sure we do that. The only other thing that I want to say is that you can see from the attitude of some of the persons, the appointees, that there were times they got irritated. There were times they got almost angry. There were times they were throwing answers back to the members, on the panel.
Example?
It must be clear
example?
for everyone to understand that.
Example?
I would rather not give examples because it will mean mentioning names, and I don't want to go there because we'll get into the weeds.
But we should do that. We should do that. Dr. Akutwe-Friye yesterday, Esla.
Yes, I think Dr. Akutwe-Friye.
Matthew Poku Prempe.
Yeah, I think there were times they felt. yes, there were times some of them felt as if, or they sounded as if, they were being harassed, as if, who are you to ask me that question? And they gave all kinds of answers, which, if you consider things in terms of the philosophy of this whole thing, those people questioning them are questioning them on behalf of citizens. The office of the citizen is the
what is wrong?
Office.
What is
they
wrong?
Are appointees.
What is wrong if the questioner is ignorant? The questioner is showing ignorance, and you need to put them right. And yet they may be wrong and strong. So you, the one to answer the questioning, what is wrong with letting them know that they are wrong and they ought not be strong?
There is nothing wrong with saying a question is inappropriate or wrong, or even correcting the question. I remember when, as a lecturer, somebody brought me questions from another lecturer trying to get me to help. And the question was wrong. So I actually wrote to that lecturer and said, please consider this. And they admitted that the question was wrong. So there are times when questions are wrong. The whole thing is the attitude. I think that people come to this thing and they are looking at the person asking the question. They should look at the citizens behind. It's similar to being interviewed by a journalist. Whenever you are interviewed by a journalist, you're actually speaking to the nation. So I think those who present themselves for appointment must appreciate that. But that will also be proven in whether the parliamentarians reject some people or not. And I think that if some of these things happen, people will sit up and come to appreciate the process better. But the more important thing is that...
Are you saying, you will get to the more important, I won't forget, because you label it as more important. Are you saying that you have an expectation that some of the nominees will be rejected?
I have a hope that some of the nominees who do not, they are fit for the job, will be rejected by the panel members because that is their job. I mean, if you are there to just approve, there's no for the job. For whatever reason, I think it is your duty to signal that to the person who is appointing. So I do have a hope that some people will be returned, and it's happened before in our history. So yes,
an example or two of those that, having followed yourself, you'll be disappointed if the committee did not disapprove of them.
There are people I have not been very impressed with. There are people I have not been very impressed with, and there are people I have been impressed with. And there are many situations where I feel the persons must be made to come back to answer certain questions before they are approved. And again, I'm resisting your invitation to mention names.
Okay, so you said you were coming to a most important part. That may be your final comment here before we get other people.
Most important part is this. Qualification per se is not an issue. And I've already said that if they find the people unqualified, they should reject them. But qualification is not an issue because the system, the law, makes it the what it is. Should be about that. To that extent, therefore, this issue about English language. Look, mastery of any language is a measure of intelligence, but that is not the only measure of intelligence. What has to be picked up is that apart from the fact that the person has a problem with a language, because if you can't express yourself in English, and that is our official language, if you cannot make sense, if you cannot understand or speak it well, it signals something. Now, what we should look for is whether there are other signals showing that thing. If it suggests that you are not on top of the job or you don't know the brief very well, is there any other thing that you are showing us to make us believe that maybe you are not fit for the job? And in certain cases, it was clear that it's not just the language that the people did not have. It is the fact that they did not understand the substance very well. I think it is for Parliament to send those people and for the president to insist that he wants them to get into office. Too many times we have too many people in high office who do nothing, and some of them actually work against our progress. That is the purpose of this vetting. So when it comes out this clearly, I think we must take steps to try and at least do something to rectify that situation. There were situations like in the case of Kojo Oponkruma, who I thought did very well. But again, yes, there were questions that may not have been answered well, etc. But you can tell clearly that he was on top of his job. And that gives me some confidence, especially also because of his youth, So we are not here to disgrace people or rubbish people. That process is very useful, especially for those who have already been in office. It is one unique chance for them to give record.
Right.
Most important thing is we should amend it and send the questions to them ahead, so they cannot dodge the questions.
Let's get some other views on what you are trying to say. But let me begin with Inusa in the studio on this note. The reference to people trying to measure the competence of people by how fluent they are in English or articulate. The case of Hawa Kumsin. Is it her problem that she can't express herself well in English? And should that be a measure for the mockery, the ridicule? What do you think about how she's being ridiculed and mocked in town? Now, your standing orders, Order 47, says the proceedings of Parliament shall ordinarily be conducted in the English language, except that a member may exercise the option to address the House in either Akan, Nzema, Ga, Ewe, Hausa, Dagbani, Dagari, or in any other local language, provided facilities exist in the House for its interpretation. Don't you think that if you had operationalized this and applied it to nominees who are appearing before you, Hawa Kumsin could have expressed herself far better than what happened?
Thank you, Samson, and let me say good morning to Dr. Eduse and your US. He was my lecturer at the LLM level. Now, the provision you've read in the standing orders clearly is for a forward-looking provision. I mean, anybody who has taken a trip to the European Parliament will see exactly what the provision is meant to address. It's a recognition of the fact that we speak many languages. Proficiency in one language should not be a criteria for limiting you to expressing yourself on the floor of the House. And so the provision looks to make room for people who can speak other languages, express themselves better, to be able to do so, and enjoins Parliament to provide facilities for the purposes of achieving that objective. And so clearly it's a forward-looking provision. We've not gotten there yet. I mean, there have not been attempts to operationalize this. And that is the challenge.
You see one harm. When she was being asked questions, something that she has said and didn't mean it that way in the media had been used against her and the government for a very long time. But on the floor, when she was asked the question, she had the opportunity to explain that she has a problem with the English language, and that is not what she meant. But for that opportunity, that issue would have been stuck against her. So why are we still here when your standing order says that people should be able to express themselves in the language that they are comfortable with, and yet they come and you yourselves, even among your members, there are people expressing the hope that some of them should be allowed to be able to speak in the language they are comfortable with?
Yeah, exactly. And so probably what we should be calling on Parliament to do, and what we should call on the state to do, is to provide facilities that will enable people to be able to express themselves in languages that they are comfortable with, so that their speeches, their comments, and their debates can be interpreted simultaneously. I mean, anytime you are in the European Parliament, I mean, I was for a long time a member of the EU ACP Joint Parliamentary Assembly, and anytime you started speaking, you would see simultaneous interpretation of your speech in many languages, and if they didn't have the facility for that, they were announced. And because of the unique nature of Europe, in countries, except probably Britain, even in Britain, you find people who can speak English and French fluently. and because of the nature of the evolution of the country. And so sometimes when they are unable to provide German or Dutch, normally they will be able to provide German, maybe not Dutch, those who speak Dutch can understand some aspects of it. But because of national issues, they really always prefer that their languages be part of those that are available for interpretation.
Okay.
But let me disagree slightly with Bentel. Bentel, qualification is an issue. Proficiency in English is not an issue. But qualification is an issue, and it's stated in Article 78. And it reads, Ministers of State shall be appointed by the President with the prior approval of Parliament for among members of Parliament or persons, underlined, qualified to be appointed members of Parliament. So qualification is an issue.
But the qualification here is clear. So qualification is qualification to be member of Parliament.
So Scipio Gabriel, when he appeared before the vetting committee in 1992, he was qualified. He could speak English. His proficiency in English was above board. He was good. He explained himself, but he failed to meet the qualification criteria because he was not a registered voter. He was a citizen of Ghana, but he was not a registered voter. Vicky Odoy, you remember? She was in London, and so no one could fault her on her English. But she was not a registered voter. Now, so qualification is an issue. You must be qualified to be a member of Parliament. Probably that explains why in the 1969 Constitution, they did not vet them, because all ministers of state or cabinet ministers of state were from Parliament. And so they would have been qualified to be members of Parliament. That qualification was there. They should be members of Parliament. But this Constitution clearly states, and just like the 1979 Constitution, clearly states that it must be with the prior approval of Parliament. But let me backtrack a little.
So before you backtrack, once you put an emphasis on qualification, and the qualification is limited to being qualified to be a member of Parliament, the next question is, what does, Chapter 10 say about who is qualified to be a member of Parliament? And does it include being fluent in English or whatever it is?
That is why I said, Samson, proficiency in the English language is not an issue.
Okay.
But you must otherwise be qualified under Article 94 to be appointed as a minister.
Right.
And Article 94 has 5 provisions. 5 provisions.
Okay.
Any person who is nominated by the president for vetting must satisfy all the requirements in Article 94.
Yes, so 1, you must be Ghanaian.
You must be Ghanaian.
You must be 21 years and above.
You must be a registered voter.
Good.
You must pay all your taxes or make arrangements to pay your taxes. You must not be disqualified because you owe allegiance to another country.
That's right.
You must not be adjudged or declared bankrupt.
Correct.
Or of unsound mind. Or detained as a criminal lunatic under any of the laws of Ghana.
You must not have been
convicted of high crime under the Constitution for any other offense punishable by death or by sentence of not less than 10 years. You must not have been convicted for an offense involving or connected with elections in Ghana, or found by a committee, a report of a committee of inquiry to be incompetent to hold public office.
Or an offense punishable by death.
By death.
Or by sentence not less than 10 years.
You understand? So there are many.
So these are the things you are looking for in the vetting.
So first of all, the members of the committee exercising their oversight jurisdiction over the executive have a responsibility to ensure that all persons who appear before them satisfy the minimum criteria, qualification criteria in the Constitution.
Following the process so far, do you find that the committee members have a mind fixed on these provisions in the questions they ask?
Well, the committee members maybe have a mind fixed on it. I can't speak for them, but I know that, and most of them have been on the committee for a very long time. And just recently, I was with them at Adan, and I drew their attention to the oversight responsibility of the appointment committee in ensuring that members nominated by the president satisfy the minimum conditions in the Constitution.
So when they are vetting people who are already MPs, what should they then do? Because the qualification is limited.
So then you come to the other leg. And these are part of the jurisprudential or doctrinal principles enunciated by J.S. Mill and Montesquieu. Now, you want to curtail impunity, that the president can just throw anybody at you. Why is Parliament invited to vet those people? You know, as a matter of governance, that the executive is responsible for policy and programs, implementation of policies and programs. To be able to implement those policies and programs, they come up with a budget, and that budget must be funded. And the funding of the budget is from the taxes of the people. And it is Parliament that keeps the purse. So Parliament has a duty to satisfy itself that the person who is appearing, apart from satisfying the minimum conditions, is trustworthy, is competent enough, first of all, to understand and implement government policy, and two, to be prudent in the utilization of the public purse in the implementation of those policies.
What have you observed from what is going on now that you feel requires some tweaking, some change? And what are your expectations? Do you expect that any of those who have gone through so far will be rejected?
I have my doubt whether they'll be rejected. I have my doubt.
Not a single person?
Not a single person, because all I hear is people talking about the fact that somebody has not been able to speak English, or somebody doesn't understand exactly the portfolio he has been given. But you must not take it away from the president that he had a minimum assessment of the capacity of his nominees to deliver on his policy. And that's why he nominated them in the first place. And so you must credit the president with some modicum of intelligence in putting people, it's like a chess game, in putting people in places to be able to push through his programs and policies. Now, the Parliament then has the responsibility to ensure that they throw light on what they believe is the inadequacies of the nominee. It is the president who now then has the prerogative to withdraw. Or if he fails to meet the legal requirement in the Constitution, then Parliament will vote to reject on the basis of the fact that he fails to meet the minimum requirement in the Constitution.
The committee cannot reject.
The committee can reject, can recommend the withdrawal of that person in the case of Sifio Gavra, in the case of Vicky Ode. But the committee normally determines the fate of a nominee on 3 levels by consensus. All the members, 26 members of the committee agree that that minister nominee is otherwise qualified to be appointed minister. That's by consensus. Unanimous. Some do not agree. No, unanimous. All of them agree. Consensus. Some do not agree. But they reach a consensus that they must let that person go.
And the last one is?
The last one is by voting. We call it by division. Some say, no, we will not approve on the basis of A, B, C, D. Then they put it to a vote. That does not resolve the matter. That is the committee's report. Then the committee report will not come before the House for debate. And then a vote. Immediately, At the committee level, there's a division. There's voting. On the floor of the House, they will be voted. You remember Mohamed Mumuni?
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much for that education. So, Dr. Foucault, what do you think about, first, the committee and how it is going about its work? There are those who say the work appears to have been left to the minority and the majority members are not needed.
Well, good morning, and good morning to my honorable colleague, Honorable Inusa. You know, I've listened to their submissions, and in trying to summarize it, I would say that it falls within the provinces of what I call formal qualifications and then essential qualifications.
Okay.
There are legal requirements that every nominee must meet. And then when you set out what the Constitution says, those are the essential ones. But we seem to dwell so much on the formal aspects. That is the reason why we are now pontificating and asking whether some should be rejected, others should be accepted, and that kind of thing. Mr. Bento even made a point that mastery of the Queen's language is a measure of intelligence.
Okay.
I disagree strongly in that you may need to go through some processes, formal processes, to master the Queen's language. And my mother didn't get the opportunity. But she's one of the most intelligent traders that I've ever come across. So when it comes to that execution, it's not about, and let's also be cognizant of the portfolios the persons are going to hold. You know, the Fisheries Ministry, the subjects and objects of that ministry, and the persons you'll be engaged with.
Why is the focus of the Fisheries Ministry?
I'm telling you that it is not about mastery of English language. Not at all. In fact, mastery of Ga and Twi may even serve you a better purpose. Mastery of Ga in particular. And that's for Twi because from the coastal areas, yes, yes. May serve you a better purpose than English language. So let's try to dichotomize between the Queen's language. I know people who are so fluent. The eloquence in the English language is impeccable, but when it comes to performance, they are found wanting. So that is where I want us to draw that kind of line. I know that some are essential, others are just mere formalities. So the person's ability to discharge the job should be the overriding consideration in deciding whether it should be passed or not. And you asked whether the majority is just sleeping whilst the minority is doing this work. I'm expecting that they all do the work together. But of course, it is natural that you don't put someone you are in the same political party in the wrong spot. I mean, it happens. Otherwise, you are undermining your political party decision to put the person across as a candidate.
You may be questioning the president's,
Well, the president can be questioned.
Judgment.
No one has that problem. And I don't think the president will even want to run things and not allow anybody to actually question him. Because as you say, if you are charting a path, you may not know where your back is crooked. So they may not go all out as the minority may do. And it is natural. If they were in government, the same approach would have been adopted. But I expect them that they are all diligent in
that regard,
the execution of their tasks.
In that regard, should the standing orders be changed so that you have only the opposition or the minority in parliament doing this kind of job rather than having the majority members join?
I don't think so.
Since they clearly will not do anything,
I don't think so.
That they are questioning the president's judgment.
I don't think so. And the reason is simple. If you look at all the committees of parliament, it is composed of sides.
Yeah, we know that. I'm only asking what you think.
And we don't want this to be an exception. We want it to be that both majority, minority, independents are available to serve on committees. And this is one of the committees of parliament, which I believe should work together in a collaborative way.
Well, that's questioning. Honorable Minister of Saying, what do you think about it?
It's always so. It's a fallout of our experiment, our project which is to establish a constitution that's a hybrid between the presidential and the parliamentary systems of government. And you know, even in the review report on the Constitutional Review Commission, they did stated that because the president appoints members of his government, a majority of members of his government from parliament, it robs members of parliament the ability to develop careers in parliament, and also the capacity of parliament to hold the executive accountable. And that is the problem. I have been in parliament for close to 16 years, and I can tell you, sometimes it beats your imagination that you are scrutinizing government as parliament and a member of parliament, while part of the committee doing that appreciates exactly what you are doing, but is forced by circumstances of the constitution and the arrangement to speak for government. It always happens. And so, yes, I think that, and that is why I have spoken vociferously, that probably we were in haste, Doctor, to create this constitutional architecture that is turning out to be our Achilles heel. Well, because that was only a single experience in the Third Republic. That was just a single experience. And in this world now, yes, our unique contribution to democracy is this hybrid system of government. But then it operates to weaken parliaments, the whip system.
Why don't you apply the same reasoning and judgment behind that committee that sees to the Auditor General's report, Public Accounts Committee, where you allow the minority to chair? Why don't you apply? Is there not a reason for allowing the minority to chair that committee? And why don't you put that reason, that same reason, allow that reason to dictate for the appointment committee?
Thank you so very much. Exactly so that the Parliament thought that the standing orders of Parliament needed review, and that some committees of Parliament ought to be chaired by the minority. And one such committee was the Appointments Committee. In these standing orders, the Appointments Committee is chaired by the first Deputy Speaker, who is named in the standing orders. And the first Deputy Speaker by convention is a member of the ruling party. So clearly, you will find that government is sitting as chairman over its nominees. And so, yes.
But relative to this first Deputy Speaker, you would find that at the Appointments Committee, he doesn't appear to be doing a party job.
Because he's well aware that there will be a public perception that because he's a member of the MPP, he's doing the bidding. In fact, I've read Jifa Bampo's post. Says next time she's going for an interview, she'll carry the man along. And that spoke volumes to me. But what I'm just saying is that Honorable Joe Osewusu knows very well that there is a public perception out there. And what he's doing at the committee level is managing that public perception. And that's why...
So he's doing very well at it.
He's doing very well at it.
I'm not thinking alone in it. Now, Kofi Bento wants to come in. Hello, Kofi. Yes, Kofi, let's hear you.
Yes. So I think it's important for us to get this. There must be both parties in parliament when it comes to appointment, because our constitution makes it the prerogative of the president. And I think the majority or the president's party person must chair. Otherwise, we undermine that prerogative. That is one. Number two, these vettings are not to expose or disgrace people. So we must not look at it in such an adversarial manner. I think that the president's members being there can serve to, bring up certain things which may be positive. If we leave it to just the minority or the people against the president, then it will become this antagonistic, vilification of people.
Why?
So
will the public also not know if the minority is doing a witch hunt, doing a bad job, doing a job that is not progressive and not constructive? Will we not know, and would they not be afraid when they do that, that if they also happen to have the opportunity to come to government, they will be paid back?
Yes, so the public will know, but the thing is this: you will defeat the president's mandate. And when the public knows, or the court of public opinion, we will know what we know and we will believe what we believe. But at the end of the day, the decisions will not be made by the public, to be made by the people who are sitting there. And indeed, we should not make it an antagonistic process. That thing must be emphasized. We are trying to bring out what the people have, which qualifies them. Even if they don't have a mastery of the language, they should be able to prove to us that they have a mastery of the substance.
Okay, Dr. Bochi just joined us.
That it should be just one-sided.
Dr. Bochi just joined us, and I'm going to him. But Kofi, I'd like you to take a look at what Dr. Pukweduse spoke about the formal qualification, emphasis on formal qualification rather than the essential qualifications. And he brought in an analogy saying, speaking Ga and Akan may be of better use to such a minister for the Fisheries Ministry than your English language, which you say competency in that is a measure of competence, if you like. Now, what is the job of the Fisheries Minister? Is it to engage the fisher folk, or it is to help Ghanaians get fish to eat? The current fisheries industry is dying because we are running out of fish. That is a scientific problem, not a propaganda problem. The president should be hiring people who can help solve the problem. Because if we run out of fish, no amount of Ga, Ewe, or Fanti will help bring them back. And that's from someone who is watching us. Yes, what do you say?
Yes, I was thinking the same thing. I just didn't have the opportunity. Respectfully, Doc is wrong. A minister's position is essentially policy, helping the president to manage that sector, helping to formulate policy, helping to implement policy. Very little of that position involves engaging fisher folk. There may be 5% or so. Indeed, if the minister spends her time, even 15% of it, engaging fisher folk, she is wasting executive time. There must be many people within the ministry to do that. Today, the challenges in the fishing industry have little to do with speaking a local language. They have everything to do with technology. People are fishing with sonar, with all kinds of technology which our people don't have. The canoes we are using were the same things being used 10,000 years ago. We need to figure out how to move from there. Today, fishing has to do with international relations, sharing fish stock. People are coming from China to fish here. It is a high-level diplomatic challenge. Fishing has to do with security, management of naval security, being able to put people on the sea to monitor who is fishing your waters, who has the license, who does not, and helping. And it has to do with fish management. That is a lot of science.
But there are directors, there are directors and experts within the ministry, are they not?
But that's the point. So the minister must be managing these directors and all those other people. And very little of that work has to do with speaking Chi and Fanti. So on that, I think the doc got it wrong. The point I'm making is that...
Oh, you want to say you disagree with him. You keep repeating he got it wrong.
But that may not be enough here. Well, the point is this. The qualification is actually not a subject matter qualification. The qualification is about eligibility qualification to be a parliamentarian.
Okay.
When it comes to qualification, the earlier point I was making is that it is entirely the prerogative of the president to determine who he believes is qualified.
All right. Let me bring in Dr. Abochi here. Doc, I'll ask you the substantive matters of the constitutional arrangement, including, for example, whether you thought it will not be better for the appointing authority to put up more than one person to be vetted for a particular portfolio. And then the vetting committee will determine which one of the people that he has put up is better qualified. But since my guests all seem to have a focus on the Fisheries Ministry, obviously because of what happened with Hawa Kumsin. From where you sit, clearly, we shouldn't have a problem with whether she's articulate in English or not. But did she come across as having shown herself approved on the substance?
Well, good morning. In order to understand this, I think it is first of all useful to put everything in context and to ask, what is the whole point of the exercise? The vetting exercise, as I understand it from the constitutional standpoint, is to achieve three things. One, to deal with the issue of capacity. Two, to deal with the issue of credibility. And then three, to deal with the issue of eligibility. In the issue of capacity, the committee is supposed to check whether or not a proposed appointee has the capacity to deliver the mandate of his office or her office. In respect of eligibility, which I think is probably the most important preliminary issue, is to check whether a person is qualified from the constitutional standpoint and whether there are any elements that bars the person from being appointed, from a constitutional standpoint. And then in terms of credibility, to check whether or not the person has the integrity to step in public office, among others. So if you put these three things together, it is on that basis I think you can measure whether or not a proposed appointee who has appeared before the committee has been able to discharge himself effectively in terms of the questions that are asked. As regards the question of whether or not substantively she can do what she's been appointed to do, I think the language is only a medium or one variable of assessing that. Now, the reason language has become important in Ghana, I think, is because invariably English is our official medium of communication. And because English has become an indicia of education, English has become substituted for education itself, which unfortunately is wrong because in reality, somebody can be very well schooled in other technical aspects of education without really being proficient in English. But because English is the medium for carrying out the proficiency of whatever a person professes, once the person is not able to express himself or herself in English, the person is taken on the face of it to not be as literate as would be expected. But one can still be very effective or very competent without being articulate in the English language. And the question is whether, we look at whether or not the person actually has substantive knowledge in a particular field. Again, my understanding, and to be honest, I didn't actually watch the fullness of that particular proceeding. But my understanding from everything I'm hearing about is that it appears that even substantively speaking, the proposed appointee was deficient. That appears to be some of the trolling and the fun people are making about her.
All right.
So, since I didn't actually follow myself, I can't make my own judgment in respect of that. But if she was substantively proficient, then the fact that her English wasn't as coherent and fluent as other people expect, that of itself will not be of any moment. But if she wasn't substantively proficient and she was deficient in that respect.
If you have been following also, and you are coming to the question I had posed earlier but deferred, if you have been following also, what do you make of the type of questions that we hear and the posture of those who are asking the questions? For example, if you look at Haruna Idrisu, does it come across as he's asking questions but he's not expecting an answer because he appears to be rushing them and not waiting for an answer? They attempt to answer, then he begins with another question.
I think that there appears to be a lot of background historical expectations on both sides of the divide. And I'm saying on both sides of the divide in terms of the NDC and the MPP, and also in respect of the appointees, the proposed appointees themselves. And the historical factors I'm speaking about is the background political contextual issues that nobody is really mentioning, but everybody understands are at play. So there are political tensions. There are all kinds of background variables that we may or may not be aware of. And again, this is not peculiar to Ghana. Everywhere in the world, and let's say the mature democracies, appointments represent a good platform sometimes to vent political vendetta and to take things on proposed appointees in terms of things they may have done in their other political life or in a political life in respect of which the mandate is being renewed. So when I listen to some of the questions, just as you indicated, and when I listen to the whole body language and the posture, not just from the NDC, but actually also from the NPP, you get a sense that sometimes these background contextual dynamics are at play. And unfortunately, it gets played out against proposed appointees, especially where they are not themselves the people who may have behaved in particular ways that may justify that. But, a particular a person doing the vetting may just have had an opportunity or a platform to vent. On the other hand, a proposed appointee's behavior, either in previous office or in some other political life, may have given an opportunity for a person doing the vetting to then pick it up from the person and ask questions that they think now may have given them the spotlight to not necessarily embarrass, but probably just to take it out on people who may have presented themselves. So political vetting or parliamentary vetting has always been an opportunistic platform sometimes for vetting and for exploiting and taking things down.
Now, Dr. Abuchi, to
I'm not saying that is what happened, but I'm just saying these are things that absolutely.
Now to the suggestion about whether it will serve us better if the appointing authority put up more than one person for consideration for a particular portfolio.
I think from a practical standpoint, two things. First of all, you may actually heighten the work of Parliament, or you may have further increased the burden of Parliament in terms of how many people they will have to review. That's the first one. From an operational and practical standpoint, I think it does help Parliament to make a better and informed judgment in respect of competing candidates and to make a decision on which candidate should be considered. But again, in terms of the optics, it may also create a sense of a lack of certainty and a lack of focus as far as the appointee is concerned, and in this case, the president. If the president appoints more than one person for a particular office, it creates a sense of the president lacking a certain degree of surety as far as that candidate is concerned. And when presidents do make these appointments, one of the things they also want to put out there is not just the fact of having to just either select one person, but it also represents a vote of confidence. And that's why if, President Nana Dankwa, for example, has been noted for appointing people and actually justifying reasons for selecting these people.
Well, this time he hasn't done that.
Before the people are even considered by Parliament, he has spoken to the Ghanaian people and told the Ghanaian people that there are justifying circumstances that warranted by selecting this candidate as opposed to all others. So when the president has to appoint or select a number of these candidates, it creates a sense of, I am just trying my luck and I'm not as sure as I actually would like to project. And that will undermine the whole essence of the appointment.
All right, thank you.
The whole optics of the appointment.
Right. Now, Dr. Duce, what do you say in respect of the Spiogabra that Inus of Senu referred to? It took the appointing authority to withdraw that appointment because on the face of it, he was ineligible because at the time, he was not a registered voter. So clearly, there was no point about that. Yeah. You, from the way you approach the fisheries issue, what do you think? Because people are saying, like Kofi Bento mentioned, there may be technocrats and what have you at the place, but policy decisions, engagement, policy analysis, analyzing reports, and so on and so forth. Must the person be someone who will be fed by, the technocrats without that person's ability to exercise a certain judgment for herself or himself without the input of a technocrat?
Samson, in answering this, we will need to appreciate it within the context of the person's history. Here is the case that the designate, the minister designate, is not a new person on the terrain. In fact, she has won a seat that the party in the past has not been able to win on consecutive occasions. She has held a portfolio in which the president trusted her so much that he wanted her to be in charge of his special initiatives,
And deliver
one village, one dam, ambulances. So when you are assessing such a person, you have a basis to assess. Was she able to execute the duty that was given to her in the first 4 years? That should be the starting point. So So if the person can provide leadership to the ministry in executing the vision and mission of the president, so be it. And I believe that she's proving to be an action-oriented person. And that is what that ministry needs at this point.
Does it not matter that in the previous life, she was working from the presidency? No, and from the presidency, it's a whole different game from being handed a ministry to manage.
You know, it also tells us that she is capable in terms of project management and execution. And once the persons bring the policy issues as articulated on paper, she will ask practical questions. So when we do this at this point, what is going to be the result? And I believe that she will be able to see through it and appreciate whatever she's going to do. Okay. So I don't think that will be a handicap at all.
All right.
There are technocrats on the ground who are going to do the paperwork. She will ask the right questions, lead them and manage them so that the action aspect of executing projects will then come to the fore when it's good.
So your final comments on this whole thing of the vetting, whether it is useful or it is not useful?
Well, I will say that what amounts to vetting in itself, right? We've been told in judgments and Attorney General that it is not a term of art. So it is left to Parliament to set its own rules and determine what vetting is. But if you were technically looking at how the meaning of vetting, it's as if you were going to sieve something and then take the wheat out of the chaff. But that is actually not the essence of vetting. So if Parliament, as our representatives, are going to ensure that there is accountability at that level, they can also do the people a lot of good by giving us openly a priority that these are the things we are going to work on to assess you.
Okay.
So that assessment criteria, if they publish it widely, and then we use it to benchmark people, that would be the best way to go.
Great, but that does not include giving them the questions ahead of the appearance.
Well, I think some questions will need to be given.
Okay.
Because the questions that normally begin with what is fish farming? Please, I will have to go and revise my JHS notes to be able to answer this kind of question.
If you were nominated for that ministry, will your preparation not include understanding?
Definitely not. To know the meaning of what fish farming is as defined in our basic textbooks, it will never come to your mind at that point. Because your preoccupation would then be what policy considerations would I have to take to be able to change the fishing regime, the seasons, those kind of things. That's why he said it's science. So that will be the kind of focus. So your focus will be on the top, not on the basics of what is fish farming and how fish ponds are constructed per se. So you're going to lead people, and when you're a good leader and bring them together, you'll be able to achieve that result. Okay. I think that's where the focus should be.
Right. Now, Arunusa, what do you also say? And, you know, people are disappointed in the committee that they have some of their colleagues come before them and they practically don't do anything. They just give them a few minutes and they walk off. But some other minister designates, they spend as many as 6 hours. Godfrey Dame, for example, 6 solid hours. Kojo Nkrumah had such a long time. What's that? And they seem to, you know, agree with PAV and some that this is shameful, shabby charade. It's known as a vetting.
I disagree entirely with the venerable Prof. And also to say that you gave 2 examples. The Attorney General, Minister of Justice designate, and the Minister of Information designate. The Minister of Information is a colleague, member of Parliament. Was my colleague in the Assembly of Parliament. And he was before his colleagues, but he spent my time there. The Minister for Roads and Highways is a member of Parliament. Look at the questions that he was subjected to. Osla also is a member of Parliament.
People are disappointed that Adjoa
Safo is a member of Parliament.
Yes.
But Adjoa Safo
was treated with kid gloves.
No. She went there as gender minister designate.
Yeah.
She was in her previous life the deputy majority leader and procurement minister working for the presidency. They asked her questions about procurement. I think her answer was very satisfactory to me. She said, look, even though I was procurement minister, the ministry that has supervisory jurisdiction over the public procurement authority is the Ministry of Finance. So if I answer a question like this, what will be the follow-up question? If you answer a question like that, what will be the follow-up question?
So in a case, the members simply didn't have questions.
She's still people telling you that I didn't have supervisory jurisdiction over there.
It is not the case that they sat, and sometimes you can sit together and plan it, that as for this, our colleague, for one reason or the other, please, let's hurry her out. Let's not spend time.
No. I don't think that they planned.
Then you agree that particular questions will not be asked certain members.
No, I don't think they planned it, but it's just human nature.
It doesn't happen?
Prof?
Not at all? It doesn't happen at all?
Dr. Dubious was with
it doesn't happen at all?
He turned out to be my lecturer.
It doesn't happen at all?
Now he's MPP communicator. Anywhere I meet him, because of his disposition, I will treat him in a certain way. I mean, you can't take away the conduct and attitude of members of parliament towards their colleagues in the vetting process.
There were some of the ministers, the members of the public generally expected particular questions. Nobody asked anything about those things. Things that has to do with their character, their reputation.
Well, the vetting prior approval is not about the character content of a nominee.
The qualification to be a member of parliament.
You remember
when you read it out, it includes character content.
The 1992 debates, whether private life or whether your private life should come into your public affairs. So, well, I think that the vetting committee, the appointments committee, has improved significantly over the years. But there is still more room for improvement. But let me state two things, because this is a platform that educates people. Samson, the nomination and appointment of ministers of state is not the sole prerogative of the president. It is part of the institutional limitations on the exercise of power by the president under Article 58. Article 58 vests executive authority in the president. But to exercise that authority must be in conformity with the Constitution. So bringing the names of persons he wants to work as minister to Parliament serves as an institutional check on the power of the president to nominate ministers. You get it?
Interesting.
So, I mean, the Constitution is replete with such institutional limitations, procedural limitations, and substantive limitations on the exercise of power by the president.
Okay.
Now, you see, Abochus spoke about capacity, qualification, and credibility, and formal qualification. And we all, as lawyers, know that there are objective and subjective criteria for determining distance. You know, I believe that the formal qualifications lend themselves to an objective criteria for assessing whether the person is otherwise qualified. But credibility and capacity, and that is why there is a lot of debate in the social media, that is quite subjective. Because, you see, and I share his view, it's all about leadership.
The concern,
it's all about leadership.
A part of the concern, I think a major part of the concern on social media and even traditional media is where the appointees are appearing, and that's part of Kofi Bentel's concern. They are appearing, you're asking them questions, they say, I am unaware. I am unaware. When I go, if you approve me and I go, I will check. What's that?
Yes, so
if they are unaware,
that is preparation, and that's where I disagree with Dr. Eduse. Now, if you are nominated Minister for Fisheries and Aquaculture,
or Minister for Justice,
or Justice,
can we relax the
or Minister for Justice, or Minister for Roads, my brother, you have to spend the next few days before your vetting to know as much as possible your sector.
Yeah.
You have to. I have gone through 3 times. You have to. Because the people in the vetting committee need to understand your frame of mind and how you intend to approach policy at the ministry. Because they're going to give you state resources You cannot come to the vetting committee and treat them with impunity, give me opportunity to go. And no, it's about resources of states.
And a number of the nominees showed that, didn't they?
Yes, so because
including my favorite Governor Dami, who Haruna Idrisu was pushing a law wrongly, not knowing that there had been an amendment, but he was insisting until Godfrey showed him the amendment, and then he said, "I concede."
Godfrey, you can't take it away from him that he was a deputy attorney general. He was very active when he was deputy attorney general, and he has also been a very diligent lawyer. I've had opportunity to appear before, with him in cases. Okay, but
I've done a couple of cases with him.
So you can't take that away from him. But it shows that he prepared. Even with that, he prepared. There were some questions, and I didn't agree with him. But he prepared before coming.
Okay.
You understand? Yeah. So I think that those ministers who are yet to come,
he seemed to share the view that you ought not be suffering that prosecution, which some of you think is a sham, and that he was going to study it, and clearly he didn't think that you should be facing court over.
Well, I'm going there on Monday, but
over your comments.
I don't want. I'm going there on Monday because I think that in the criminal prosecution, it is the prosecution that proves your guilt. You don't have a responsibility apart from raising reasonable doubt in their matter. So I'm just going there. But what I'm saying is that those who are yet to come.
From what you heard him say, do you get the impression that this thing will be withdrawn and?
I don't have any impression. I'm prepared. I'm prepared. Samson, I spoke to you before even. I don't want to reveal that on. But I'm saying that I don't have I don't think about anything. I just think about Monday. I'm going to court.
Okay.
And whatever happens, that's fine with me. But you see,
what's the charge you are facing again?
Conduct conducive to the breach of the peace under Section 207 of the.
All right.
But what I'm saying is that those who are yet to appear,
Now, wait, I need to finish that. There are those who say he shouldn't be pretending. They think he's pretending to be unaware that you are in court and facing this. What do you say to those people who say that? Do you agree with them? Because he was not in charge of criminal prosecutions.
You see, I do not want, Godfrey, I do not want to put him on the spotlight. But I also know that as an Attorney General, the police prosecute on the basis of fiat. Because Articles 88 is quite clear. There's a presumption that you are aware.
But again, police can go.
It cannot be a rebuttal.
But again, police can take a process and go to court without the Attorney General knowing.
Because of the fiat.
Yes, and also
because of the fiat.
Something. Yeah. Sometimes look at what's happening in my place, Kumawu. Villages where police officers are the ones in charge of prosecution. It is because the Law Officers Act, right, draws powers from the Attorney General for them to be able to prosecute.
That's the fiat.
Yes, and I'm saying that under no circumstance would you stay in Accra and know about prosecution of minor offenses across the board.
That's why I don't want to put him on.
So annually, that's why reports are supposed to be sent. But until it's brought, there's no way you will be.
That's why I don't want to put it on that. But I'm just saying that people, nominees sometimes have the tendency, and it is because we have been poo-pooing the work of Parliament, not to prepare to come before the committee. And I will advise committees, nominees who are yet to appear, please spend some time to prepare. It is for your own good. Probably if our Kumsen, my sister, and she's my sister, if she had spent some time just preparing. I know her, she was a teacher. And look at the introductory remarks about what happened in her constituency.
That's the further surprise. People are surprised that she was teaching.
Yes.
And she has a difficulty expressing herself in English.
Well, maybe because you knew that the thing will come on camera and those things. But what I'm saying is that, but look at the introductory comments. She was so fluent, so lucid. She was able to put across exactly what happened in a way that left no doubt in the minds of people. It means that she thought over that several times over.
Right.
But her preparation for the vetting was deficient.
Okay. Thank you. Dr. Abuchi and Kofi Bento, in 2 minutes, is this process necessary at all? This vetting, is it necessary? Start with Dr. Abuchi. Okay, Kofi, is this necessary at all?
It's absolutely necessary. Indeed, we should be doing a bit more. I hope that somewhere in between the terms, there should be a way of calling back ministers and reflecting some of the things they have said to them. I wanted to correct something that my brother Inusa said. So he said that nomination is not the sole prerogative of the president. Please no.
Nomination appointment.
The appointment process is not the sole prerogative of the president. Yeah. But the nomination is the sole prerogative of the president.
Yeah, he said nomination appointment. We need to make that he brought the two in, nomination appointment.
Yeah, but we should make the distinction because he was seeking to educate.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
The nomination is the sole prerogative of the president, but the appointment is a process that includes parliament.
Right. Dr. Abuchi, in 2 minutes or less, is this necessary at all? Should we be doing this?
Well, I think 2 minutes is too long. It's extremely necessary. The vetting process represents a feedback mechanism. The appointment represents public office, an entrance into public office. And therefore, we need to know whether the person being appointed has the requisite competencies and proficiencies and credibility and capacity, as I mentioned. And so it is only feedback that we, as the ultimate appointers, the Ghanaian people are the appointers through the president. We are the ultimate appointers, whether we're satisfied with the person being appointed on our behalf. So it's a feedback mechanism, and it cannot be dispensed.
Thank you very much. We'll take a break. I'll return. I'll share some messages that have come in respect of the vetting with you. And thereafter, we'll go to look at the question of the judgment debts that are staring this country in the face. Well, were we promised that the way to avoid judgment debts was to kick John Mahama out of office? So why are we having to be saddled with judgment debts once again? Did we learn any lessons from the sole commissioner's report, Justice Appel's report, on how to avoid judgment debts? We'll be right back. You're welcome back. This is NewsFile. It's your most authoritative news analysis platform. It's brought to you by the candid sponsorship of Bank of Africa, as strong as a group and close as a partner, MTN. Everywhere you go, Ashasi University, educating entrepreneurial and ethical leaders for Africa. Duroplus, where Duroplus goes, water flows. Having mosquito spray and coil, pleasant on humans, tough nightmare on insects. And Upper Foods, it is tasty. Dubious Industries, Roberts & Sons Limited, Optical Services, your comprehensive eye care service provider. Now, let's get to deal with the questions of judgment debt. I'll share your messages with you. There are quite a number of them. I'll share them with you very shortly. Okay, let me start with this one. This one from Yakubu Ibn Chambers. He says that, ironically, lawyer Haruna is defending the seemingly clueless Adjo Asafo, who could believe this. These politicians can make us stand alone in the deep sea. And in relation to that message, another message, anonymous, says that with the gender minister's vetting, I am sorry about the total lack of lustre performance, not even of the nominee, but the whole appointments committee. A sore disappointment. A sore disappointment. Edward Seiram Tutor says that, what is fish farming? This is a legitimate question. How Akumsin should have been able to define it and take the opportunity to share the history present conditions and the future of fish farming in Ghana under her tenure. Kofi Amoah says, which agencies were under Hawa Kumsin's former ministry? What policies were she coordinating? Was she coordinating, facilitating, aside ambulance, dam, etc.? Dr. Odro says, I'm wondering, should the health minister be able to define acute chest syndrome? I'm wondering, what are the limits on technical knowledge? Charles Reku Brobe, Dr. Charles Reku Brobe says that missing question to all nominees. What do you see as main challenges of your job, and how do you propose to overcome them? Prince Ni Aiku says, Madam Hawa Kumsin's debacle should not be reduced to a mere deficiency in English oratory. She proved beyond reasonable doubt that even if that vetting was held in Twi, Ga, or any local dialect of her choice, she still wouldn't have been able to answer those questions. Okay, so thanks for your messages. Now, let's get to deal with the matters of judgment debt. So, judgment debt has been, an issue for a long time in this country, and we have, over the period, sought solutions. But the question now is, why don't we seem to overcome it? There has been a judgment debt awarded against Ghana in the sum of 134 million over the cancellation of the GCGP power deal. You remember Ejakon's time and the problems that eventually led to him having to leave office. Then we have this Chinese company, Everyway, that is also gone to the international arbitration, seeking an amount of $55 million, all of them in dollars, from Ghana over a cancellation of its contract with Ghana. It had already started working, and we seem to have changed the ministries responsible for the contract. After all the approvals were given and they started work subsequently, we decided to take it away from them under some reasons, and now they too are in court. So, on that note, let me go again to start with Kofi Bento. Yes, Kofi, the matters of judgment debt, and we have received a lot of messages on judgment debt even before we started that discussion. Yes, Kofi. Yes, Kofi, please unmute.
Hello, doctor. Yeah. Hello, do you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'll start with this. Sometime, I think in October, I got a call. You remember Imani had put out a lot of concerns about judgment debt, specifically on the traffic management and a couple of other things. And also, we had been speaking about GCNet and complaining that it could lead to a judgment debt. Sometime in, I think, October or November last year, I got a call. It was somebody who was telling me, one, we were wasting our time screaming and shouting about judgment debt. And then the person said, these are not being resisted well, or they are not being resisted earnestly. And I think what he meant was that our government is not fighting it. And then he said that very soon we will hear what will happen and that the judgment debts will hit us. So when the GCGP one hit, it all came back to my mind. My question is, first, how come we don't seem to be resisting these judgment debts that earnestly or passionately? And is it true that these are not being resisted earnestly? Now, that as a background brings me to my issue. How do we end up, in our calculation, we are at risk of losing $400 million between the GCGP, GCNet, and then the traffic management, and I think one other. $400 million lost. And sometimes, in the case of GCGP, no work was done. In the case of the traffic management, it was needlessly lost because of willful acts that were totally unnecessary. And my brother Inusa is there. He warned, Inusa warned, other people warned that what you are doing will lead to this. So it's not like they didn't know. And it was just reckless. And we are sitting here looking at 400 million. I would not be this upset if these were mistakes, if these were errors, if these were inadvertent, if these were unforeseeable. But it looks as if we walk into them open-eyed. If you take the GCNet case, we won. For over a year, we were writing articles that this is wrong. The contract should not be cancelled because it is in effect. And if you're going to cancel it, do it properly. People just walk in and tear up a contract, and they are told. Sometimes there is the AG's opinion written that please don't go this way, and they still go ahead. And then this call that I got to the effect that nobody is really resisting these judgment debts, it gives me a lot of cause for worry. I think it's time we start looking very closely as to whether they are genuinely judgment debts or not.
Right. So in respect of the 130 plus million of the power agreement issue, that is already an award, as in a judgment that has come in. In respect of the Chinese 55 that they are seeking, that one is now in the arbitration. And we do not know if Ghana could make a strong point, and then eventually we may not have to pay that amount of money. But what was the basis? What was the basis of your earlier caution?
The basis of our earlier caution, if you take the GCNet one, was that you had a subsisting contract. Every good contract has termination clauses. So if you really want to terminate, you invoke the termination clauses. The termination clauses in that contract were not properly invoked. Immediately you do not invoke the termination clauses properly, you set yourself up for a liability. And these are not mom and pop shops or small things, multi-million-dollar enterprises like GCNet, and in which the government has, some stake also. So the way they went about it really gave us a lot of cause for concern. On the policy level, we did not see the propriety, the need to switch from GCNet to Unipass or to ICOMS, as they were doing, as they were saying. And we put out the analysis and all the work we had to do. The decision, of course, is government's. But we made it clear that there was no real need to do so. If you're going to do that, then make sure you do it in such a way that you don't leave the country, indebted. But that whole approach of doing things anyhow, and when even you are warned, you persist in doing them anyhow, and or state an unnecessary debt really is wrong. And I think that is why we have the law on willfully causing financial loss. So we warn about all these things. And it is sad that when you do all these and you do all the warnings, they just go ahead. And when they go ahead, you end up with a judgment debt. The state pays the judgment debt. And I keep saying, have a reference to this call that I got. And the suggestion is that there is private gain, okay, and then there is public loss. So we should really watch this. And indeed, we have had the case of Wyoming, which has gone to court and has been determined not to have been a properly paid judgment debt. We have had situations where judges have talked about create, loot, and share. And when you look at everything, where it is clearly not a mistake, you have to question why we do this to ourselves. And indeed, in the case of the Chinese, that is the
Everyway.
the traffic management project, Parliament can step in today, right now, and prevent that $55 million loss, because that contract really has not been totally wiped off. The mistake was made by giving it to another person whilst one was in, they were working on, the project. I think that Parliament, and Inusa is there were others like Honorable Akboja and co. Parliament now can do something to save this country the $55 million. Any lawyer who looks at that arbitration knows that Ghana is going to lose. So we should really take a very serious view of it. And those who are in charge should take a more serious, view to defend the country, when these judgment debts arise. What the person told me before was that we are not defending ourselves.
Wear your heart of patriotism and repeat what you just said. Ghana will lose?
Yes, I am a Ghanaian. I am a patriot. And I am saying that where my country clearly goes and breaches a proper contract and does it in a way that is wrong and leaves us liable for a debt, it is my patriotic duty not to tell everybody that we will win, but to warn everybody and tell them that what we have done is wrong. And these people are likely to win.
You don't think that after, before it went where it is now, it was okay for you to raise the alarm bells and caution the state against it. But once it has gone into the courtroom, so to speak, arbitration, we shouldn't be saying that Ghana will lose?
No, if you do that, you're not a patriot. We should be telling the truth and telling people what to do to save the country, not lying to ourselves.
Okay.
What we have done is to abrogate unlawfully a proper contract. And I'm saying there are ways we can resolve the matter and avoid losing $55 million. One of the ways is for Parliament to recall that thing and fix it. It can be done. Indeed,
that would be the third time. That would be the third time that Parliament has to consider the same contract. It first awarded it to this particular company, and then later on,
losing $55 million. So I'd rather that Parliament takes a bit of embarrassment and fixes the problem they created. This thing was passed on a certificate of emergency.
All right.
There was no emergency.
Okay.
So please, the point is,
hold on there. Let me come to Eunice Ofuseni, because of his presence in Parliament during all of these particular two judgment debt and potential judgment debt situations. Yeah. And before I ask you my question, and prompting Dr. Abochi ahead of time and Dr. Dubious ahead of time, the report of the Commission of Inquiry into Payments from Public Funds arising from judgment debt and Akin matters, pursuant to CI 79, 2012. Justice Yao Apau, sole Commissioner and Justice of the Court of Appeal then, 2015. This is the report I'm holding, and in the recommendations, chapter 6, he identified, among other things, what has been causing the judgment debt. Contractual breaches resulting mostly from unlawful abrogation of government contracts, inadequate legal knowledge, expertise, and appreciation of the drafting of agreements binding public sector institutions and other multilateral, bilateral, and private organizations, especially international agreements. Abuse of power by state officials during the execution or performance of their duties. Inadequate action or inaction by state attorneys to defend the Republic when there are cases against it. Lack of specialized alternative dispute resolution, ADR mechanisms or departments that could help the state to resolve some of these. And there are several others, including undue political interference within the public sector by powerful politicians and cronies. Then, in suggesting how to avoid judgment debts, having identified this, the solution was to avoid these things. So he gave prevention, strong defense, and sanction. In the area of strong defense, he asked, among other things, that we should avoid the inaction we see in the Attorney General's Department, delays and failures to appear in court, lack of dedication to duty, and lack of proper and adequate supervision by the Solicitor General. With the benefit of this, why are we still here on these two contracts?
Thank you, Samson. Sometimes it actually pains that you're unable to do anything about something that appears eminent to you at the time a decision is taken. And we ought not to have been here. Two things are quite manifest: undue political interference and impunity. And they still play a part in why we are paying judgment debts. Impunity because Mr. or Honorable Boacha Jaku appeared before Parliament in November 2017. He spoke about the rationalization of the energy sector, how certain EPAs were going to be rescheduled from 2017 to 2020, 2020 to 2025, and how 11 of the PPAs were going to be terminated. So we haven't seen the end yet. We haven't seen the end yet. The 11 of the EPAs to be terminated included GPGC. Honorable Boacha Jaku also told Parliament that the anticipated costs of the termination of the 11 PPAs was $402.39 million.
Oh, that was cost, not savings.
No, cost. No, cost.
Was savings.
No. The anticipated cost of the termination. So he knew that the termination will incur costs.
Okay.
So now what is the cost? The cost is either a negotiated settlement or a judgment debt.
Okay.
So he also anticipated that the terminations will incur or impose a burden on the state of Ghana. He knew that. But he said that the terminations would, and he put this against a capacity cost. In his view, if they allowed all the PPEs to come on board, government will be paying for power it did not need. And that is what they call capacity costs. They produce, they are available, but you don't need the power. He said that, in fact, the capacity cost that they had calculated was $586 million. He said this in Parliament. So if you were going to be paying over the years $586 million as against a termination cost of $402 million and 39, you are making savings. That's his calculation. That's his calculation. And if you were not going to pay for their services over the year of the contract, the EPAs, you are going to pay $7.619 billion. And this is in the Parliamentary Hansard of November. He said that. Now, so it's beyond question that Boacha Jaku did not know that the termination will have some adverse impact on the finances of this country. He knew. But it was a policy. It was a government policy that all the agreements that had been entered into during the John Mahama administration be reviewed. In reviewing them, they sought to rationalize them.
You know, let me get to that again. At page 153 of the report, the minister told Parliament thus, quote, "The government stands to make significant savings from the deferment and or termination of the reviewed PPAs. The estimated cost for the termination, okay,
is 402.39.
You're right. So I had always been reading it as the same.
No. It's the estimated cost.
The estimated cost
of the termination
for the termination is USD 402.39 million. 39 million, compared to an average annual capacity cost of USD 586 million each year, or a cumulative cost of USD 7 billion 619
million.
Okay, from 2018 to 2030. Okay, please proceed.
Good. So he knew that this will have impact. But you see, in rationalizing power, and that is, we have to accept that when we elect governments, we vest them with the ultimate responsibility for determining the direction of states. So they will take decisions, but those decisions will have consequences on the state. We can't run away from that. Because we had changed government in 2016, and then the new government took over the reins of power in 2017. They then proceeded to determine the policies and programs in the energy sector. And that was within their mandate, having won the elections. And that the determination of the policies and programs in the energy sector included a review of their predecessors' activities. But in all this, we must put the national interest above all interests. I hear, and so when he came in Parliament, the question was, the government of the NDC was pursuing a program which sought to establish the country as a net exporter of power. Preparatory steps had been taken under the auspices of ECOWAS to establish a West Africa power market where Ghana could offload its excess power onto the power grid. And so we had established a grid, a 330 grid up to Muhan, for the purposes of exporting power to Burkina Faso. So the question is, if all the power projects were to come on board, how much of that power were we to export? And how much was to be brought in by the export of that power? That is lost. I mean, and all through the arguments, it was as if that there was a reckless attempt by the previous administration to sign in a lot of PPA, to sign a lot of PPAs as power purchase agreements, okay, for the purposes of addressing the energy crisis that we were going through. Now, the energy crisis was part of the problem that was to be addressed, and that's why the emergency power plants were signed. But the overall objective and policy of government was to establish this country as a net exporter of power, where our excess power could be sold to other countries. I've always said, and I was privileged to work at the energy department. I've always said, energy minister, I've always said, can you imagine, doctor? I mean, and sometimes we fail to do the economics. Can you imagine that we are able to get connections into just a state of Nigeria and export power to that state? Can you imagine the amount of money that we will be making? But we didn't do that. So yes, so we knew. I mean, there's no argument. It is Bachi Ajaku.
So let's go to the second one.
The second one.
Other people can also.
The second one was simply this.
But I must remember this. Did your government itself not start the process of cancelling or terminating some of the PPAs that you had already brought in?
No. Government had not started the process of terminating any PPA.
Really?
Government had started the process of reviewing all the PPAs that have been signed in order to rationalize them. When do they come on stream? So that you could stagger its implementation. A committee had been set up to do that. You don't sign PPAs and hope that all will come on board at the same time. If they do that,
have you heard the finance minister repeatedly tell us how much we have been saddled per year of payments in dollars over the unnecessary power that you saddle the state with?
Yeah, I've heard the finance minister say that. But I've never heard the finance minister say what attempts he has made as finance minister to activate our desire to sell the excess power that he thinks is wasting in this country outside the country. I've never heard the finance minister say that. The finance minister has always limited himself to availability of power, which we don't need.
Okay.
But if you have power that you don't need, what do you do to it? If you produce food that you don't need, what do you do to it?
You sell?
You sell it.
You want to be doing buying and selling? when you don't buy and sell? At what profit?
No, but we as a stable democratic country must reap the dividends of the stability of this country. You can't just want to brand Ghana without looking at what the branding will do to you as a country.
I see.
If you are politically stable, and you people are prepared to invest.
You are going to the next one.
The next one was simply
the 55
this.
potential.
The next one was simply this. Under the master facility agreement that John Professor Atamils of late entered into with the Chinese government, there was a component of it that dealt with the Accra Intelligence, the Accra Metropolitan Area Traffic Intelligence, management system. Now, you know that agreement was capped at 1.2. So the London size, the Accra Intelligence Traffic Management System, others were put on the back burner. When MBP came into office, they activated the master agreement facility and then sought to use what was left of the money. Now, in doing so, the finance minister signed an agreement with the CDB, Chinese Development Bank, for the use of $180 million of the remaining facility for the purposes of implementing the Accra area-wide traffic management system. That's Intelligent Area, Accra Metropolitan Area Intelligent Traffic Management Project. Now, they brought a resolution to Parliament. The finance minister, after entering into this agreement with the CDB, brought a resolution to Parliament. Oh no, it's $100 million. Brought a resolution to Parliament on Saturday, 22nd day of December 2018, which was approved. And in that agreement, the contractor was named. The resolution of Parliament included the naming of the contractor. So it means Parliament had ratified not only the loan agreement, but the award of the contract to Everyway Traffic, Beijing Everyway Traffic and Lighting Technology Company Limited.
Yeah, those who are in the arbitration now.
So, in 2020, Parliament received communication and documents from the Ministry of Finance seeking, one, to move the contract from Ministry of Roads and Highways to Ministry of National Security. And let me state, even before we conclude this discussion, that it is just traffic management system. And we, under John Dramani Mahama, we went to American New York traffic management system and looked at how they managed their traffic. It's just like when you are moving from this place into Accra, people sitting somewhere must be able to tell you that other roads are available. And so you can use those roads instead of using the straight road. That's a traffic management system. Or that there is a problem on another road. So don't use that road. It's just to manage the so that you can have easy flow, the traffic. The national security came and said, no, this one is a national security issue. And so they were moving the contract from the Ministry of Roads and Highways to the Ministry of National Security. Now, that movement also, in the view of the national security, necessitated the abrogation of the contract between the government of Ghana and Beijing Everyway Lighting and Technology Company. My role in Parliament, then I drew the attention of Parliament to the fact that because Parliament, by resolution, had not only approved the loan, but had ratified that contract in that resolution, because we mentioned them in the... So we had, by virtue of that resolution, ratified that contract and named Beijing Everyway as the contractors. You couldn't be approving Huawei as the new contractors. And they will be, you will have private...
I think the question of approval is not a debate.
Yes.
There's too much documentation to show that.
To show that, yes.
But the subsequent act was a sort of a rescission.
So I then said, well, and that's why I won't go because that appears to be a defense. I mean, because Parliament, I then advised Parliament that we shouldn't proceed, even though the ratification of the new agreement could be interpreted to mean the abrogation by necessary implication of the earlier resolution. We should do a motion of rescission and rescind the decision of 2018.
31st December.
2018, which that was the day it was communicated. The decision was on 22nd December.
Okay.
So we should rescind that decision to be able to do this new one. And that was what they did. But clearly, I had no doubt in my mind that the people will explore.
So the contract was taken from one ministry
to another ministry.
From roads to national security.
Yes.
And then from every way, Beijing every way, to a new entity.
To Huawei.
To Huawei. Mm-hmm. And this is what has led to, and they plead copiously in the notice of arbitration to the Court of Arbitration. And what do you make of it, that this has come?
Well, it's another undue interference. You see, behind the scenes, we had a lot. I don't think that I can communicate that one. Because when behind the scenes, we had a lot. I mean, and many people, including people from the Ministry of Roads and Highways, called me. And that was the first time they were calling me to complain about what was happening. I also had opportunity to talk to the...
This was done to satisfy people's personal interest.
It was
and
done,
not really a question of national security or that Beijing
it was just about
anything,
it was just personal idiosyncrasies of players who matter now in the Ghanaian politics. Because first of all,
I have been reading some documents, and I find at a point that at a certain point the Chinese embassy also made.
Oh, the Chinese embassy wrote to the government. Right. The Chinese consular wrote to the government of Ghana on the 15th day of October 2020, drawing attention to what the government was doing. And
so it has moved from Ghana government with a contractor to sort of...
The Chinese consular even referred Ghana government to the sword cutting ceremony that it attended for the purposes of implementing the contract between Beijing Everyway, and the government of Ghana. Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo had gone to cut sword. The company, immobilizing, issued invoices for materials they had brought into this country on the 27th of November 2019 to the tune of $16,822,441.
And why the government of that country will also come in may be instructive, that on the 5th of December 2018, this parliamentary communication, you call it, shows that the money, the funding for the project was from the China Development
Bank, the CDB facility.
Yes, and they had given an amount of $210,660,000 United States dollars in relation to the Accra Intelligent Traffic Management Project. Therefore, they had an interest.
That was their money. First of all, it's Chinese money, so you can't use any other contractor to execute it. Okay. That's why they removed Beijing and put it away. They couldn't bring any other company. Okay. So that's the first thing. Right. Now, the last one. GCNet. I was a member of the Trade Committee. Destination inspection is big money for people in government. But the GCNet, government of Ghana has shares. If GCNet makes profit, government of Ghana has interest in the profit it makes.
Okay.
GCNet demonstrated before the Committee on Trade and Industries that they had escalated the revenue inflows into this country since they took over the destination inspection job. Government will have none of it.
Okay.
In fact, the new company that was brought for the destination inspection had even, I mean, let's
come to Dr. Duse. So, Dr. Duse, as we know, if you take the one with the GCGP, you would find that actually when Mr. Jackson was talking about the savings and estimated costs, he actually meant that was exclusive of this particular one. And he had intimated or indicated to the Mines and Energy Committee that Ghana was to incur no cost following the termination of the GPGC contracts. So the 400 million plus we are talking about, in his estimation, was exclusive of that one. We understand that the PPA committee recommended a settlement in the sum of $18 million for mutual termination, but this was ignored, which means we had the opportunity to have paid only 18 million. And if you read the award, if you read the process that had gone on in the arbitration, you find that all these things come up. And I'll get to this final point at paragraph 492 of the final award. They said, on the basis of this record, the tribunal has no hesitation in concluding, A, that the true reason for the purported termination of the EPA was aptly summarized by counsel for GPGC in the course of his opening submissions. Thus, quote, the PPA committee report suggested that the actual development cost of the project to date should be verified and used as a guide in negotiations for termination. In other words, the committee suggested that Government of Ghana should negotiate a settlement under which it would only compensate GPGC for its mutual development cost, rather than what GPGC was entitled to under the contract. The committee calculated what it estimated that actual development cost to be, and thus the hoped for price of a negotiated termination might be USD 18 million.
Well,
why are we here?
Well, something, I guess we are here because certain things were not done right in the past. I believe for the company GCGP, if they weighed it and realized that they will earn more by resorting to arbitration, they will resort to that. And I believe that was the decision they took, to resort to the arbitration instead of accepting the mutual settlement.
No, that was ignored. That's why they went to arbitration. So if Ghana had paid them the 18 million, would have ended the whole process there. Is that not what it is?
I doubt that was as straightforward as it was.
You see, Doctor, what happened was that Ghana also believed that they were rather entitled to.
Exactly. So the lack of consensus in that regard actually resulted in the settlement falling through. Something, when you were speaking initially, you gave in your preamble, you said that the then candidate, Akufo-Addo, gave a tweet as to why there should be a change of government in 2016 to obviate situations of judgment debt.
Yes, that has been circulating on social media.
Yes, I mean, the then candidate's position was that the judgment debts as it prevailed in those times were dubious judgment debts. And it's for that reason that the phrase judgment debt, the concept of judgment debt, is now attained the character, I'll call it a negative character of dubiousness. Other than that, it's a simple phrase that in which there is a breach of a contract, and then the other party agrees sues. He can get liquidated claims against you. You see, so insofar as the Republic enters into contracts, there could be those hiccups. Someone could sue, the Republic can also sue, and then get remedies accordingly. So it is not that there can never be any judgment there whatsoever, because we are interacting with so many people. But it is the dubiousness of Waterville, Isophoton, Wyoming's related judgment deaths, which were cooked in some chambers or in some corners, and then presented to a court for it to put its stamp on it as judgment death. That was the worry situation we were talking about. Well, that was the worrisome situation. Now let's go to the energy issue. You know, Honorable has been in that field for a while. And we all know Ghana's energy capacity, right? We are between 2,700 to, let's say, 3,000 megawatts, right? Nationwide. So if you sign onto emergency power agreements, power purchasing agreements, that run into several numbers to solve a specific issue. What was the issue? The issue was that we were sleeping in darkness. So we needed to up our capacity level to 2,700 plus, and then have that relief. In solving that problem, we decided to go beyond that, to turn ourselves from being consumers of energy into exporters of energy. But we know that the markets are also regulated by demand and supply. So you haven't solved your in-house problems of doing so. And then decided to sign several power purchasing agreements, some of them emergency situations that were never used, with an anticipation that you were going forward to be an exporter, when the GRU norm, the basic infrastructure, had not been put in place. That was where the problem was coming from. So when we came to government, we realized that a lot of them were, how to call it, take or pay agreements. So whether you use it or not, you are going to pay for it. That's the reason why the review situation came about. And as we said, the review also had the NDC involved. They took those steps because they realized that they had oversigned to Ameri, to GCP, all those contracts. So it was not going to serve our purpose. They had also initiated the process to review. We carried through the review to assess whether, when some were abrogated, we'll be able to save the state funds. And in fact, it's proven that some funds will be saved. And let me give you an indication of the arbitration award at this point, right? We are going to more or less lose about...
Upon the advice of the World Bank, the NDC, that is in November 2016, the NDC began the process.
Yes,
but
to
they
review.
are telling you that the processes of review was to get an extension, and to manage when each one was going to come on stream.
You see?
So just wait. And that they had intention of exporting power from Ghana. Now here, the question more particularly,
so that I don't lose my strand of argument.
It's why I know where you said you are, so we'll get there. It's why, even when you did the termination, you had the opportunity of a mutual settlement, which was going to cost the state 18 million.
I've already responded to that.
18 million.
There was no consensus idem on that particular aspect, because we also thought we had a case.
What we know by now, as you find in the final award or the judgment, is that it is because you were not willing for this as a state, as government.
You see,
even upon the Attorney General's advice, that is what has led us to this.
The nuances of
130
that proposed settlements never came to fruition because there was no consensus idem from both sides, whether it's from the government and also from the contractor side. They were not able to agree to it. That's why it went to other 3 umpires for them to decide. That's my position. So what I'm saying is this: when we reviewed and realized that we could save to the tune of about 7 billion when some are abrogated, right? It meant that we had to take that decision, election, whether to abrogate and then incur some minimal cost in that regard.
Okay.
For the contract that we signed with GCGP, annually, we were supposed to pay $80 million, whether we use the power or didn't use it. Imagine this has been deferred, as Honorable is suggesting, so that we'll be able to have enough capacity and be exporting. You just have to go and look for buyers, right? Who are equally interested in buying from you. It means that you have to put in place your infrastructure to be able to even export. That has not been dealt with. So if the foundation has not been laid, and then you have all this, and then you are deferring them to 10 years.
Don't you already export some power?
Well, we do, because for, let's say, to Togo, we have gotten the basic export infrastructure. But this kind of power we are actually assuming onto ourselves when we have not solved our home matter. The trouble was that we were sleeping in darkness. When we have not resolved it, thinking of other people was relevant.
But they had resolved the doomsday. They had already resolved it.
Well, had not been fully resolved, and there are a lot of documentation in 2016 that spoke to the fact that it was still lingering on. Because we were now trying to find ways.
For those of us consumers of power,
yes, we had issues.
We know that doomsday had been resolved, contrary to what you try to say on political platforms.
I'm telling you, then candidate Baumia told us the cause was that it was not as if we had signed all these agreements and then the powers were available. In the case of GCGP, not a single power came in from them, right? Because we signed on to terms that impose so much obligations on the government of Ghana to make sure that we're able to settle with Gridco. We're able to get Energy Commission clearances for them, EPA clearances for them. I mean, you sit there as a public official.
But in terms of power supply, when you came in as a new government, you didn't do anything new.
But we changed the finances.
You had come to inherit a situation where we already had the power. We didn't have a problem with power anymore.
We had come to inherit a situation whereby we had what we call the hardware.
Okay.
Right? But the software to run the hardware was money. And they were bereft of ideas of generating that money. That's why candidate Baumia then told you the problem of our energy
is money.
It's money.
Oh, but
so they were not able to generate the money
allow him
to be able to finance or fuel the various architecture they have put in place. And I'm telling you, the terms of that architecture were onerous on the government of Ghana. Of course, I've heard Dr. Ine defending the uncitral rules in Ameri and the rest, right? We know of the uncitral rules, right? But the essence of it is that anytime those rules are brought in international economic transactions, right, it means that your hands are so tied that you can't toy with it. So anytime you are going to sign onto it, be careful. That's the situation we are confronted with.
Okay.
You either enjoy it, or even if you don't enjoy it, you pay, right? So 80 million times, let's say 10 years, that's $800 million. We decided to abrogate it, and then suffer the consequence of paying about 160 million.
And that's on the assumption that you were not using the power
because we were not going
for
to use
10
it.
years.
They were excess.
You were not exporting it for 10 years.
Something I've already spoken to the fact that our architecture was not ready to do the exportation.
All right.
It wasn't. So, and then that's why I'm saying that we need to be careful as public officials when acting in this kind of situation.
How about the everyway one?
Well, the everyway one, traffic management.
Yeah.
You know, it's sad. Lord Denin a while ago said something about legal transplantation. This is what I call blind transplantation of smart cities into Ghana. You see, dust has consumed your environment. You have not even solved that problem. You are talking of smart city. Your road infrastructure has not been constructed in such a way that Okada drivers or riders can have their own path. And you are talking of what? Smart city? So, they actually saw something in New York, as Honorable just mentioned. Realized that it could work.
No, that's not what I said.
I'm telling you that the environment, the context wasn't right for it.
No,
that's why we have that kind of situation.
I thought that Dr. Baumia so far, and you said he was running mate, you said candidate. I don't know if that's a promise. That's a prophecy. You just said candidate Baumia.
Yeah, right. Those days.
Okay, so I'm saying I don't know if that's a prophecy.
Vice presidential candidate.
Okay, so I thought that
that would be good, isn't it?
All that he has been in charge of so far has been towards creating a smart economy, a smart city. So if they have started with our traffic management, what's the problem?
You see, we sometimes have to crawl before we run. We do things incrementally. So if you start with, let's say, digitizing of an aspect, it takes a while. You finish it, realize that when this is added, it can feed into it for it to generate the right outcome in terms of our societal progress. That is how it should have been done. But I'm telling you, you had electricity problem. How those smart traffic light situation will work when your lightning is a challenge was that we needed to solve that issue, have that stability before we transition into another one.
Is that the reason for the abrogation?
You know, I would say that's the sole reason.
We have not been told that that is part of the reason for the abrogation.
No, I'm not saying, I'm telling you that historically, right? You had then come and then inherited a contract.
I get that.
Yeah.
You may have heard Makasibe Yevua, who was on this matter all the time. You may have heard Kandapa questioned about it during the vetting.
Yeah.
Nobody mentions what you have mentioned as a factor for
well, it should agitate the minds of persons who are actually involved in this. That transplantations or bringing stuff from elsewhere onto your context, you must always be careful about them. Mr. Bentil mentioned
and can't you do them in a way that avoids unnecessary debt?
Of course, as public officials, that is what you are supposed to do. Check the interest of your state so that the harm that is done to the state is as minimal as possible. Mr. Bentil mentioned 400 million. I believe that he needed to dichotomize between what is actual and then what he envisaged to be in the case of GCNet and then that of the traffic situation. So it is not as if that Ghana is losing 400 million automatically, right? But he fears that we could lose that much. I think public officials will need to be cognizant.
These are people, this is a company that every way they had done work, we have paid them for some of it, they were continuing to do, and all of a sudden we find reasons. And if you listen to the people, including like Honorable Yunus Fuseni, is reluctant to say that there are personal issues that the state has been used to incur the debt, that there are particular people who want the contracts to go to particular, places for private benefits.
Something I will not be able to justify that or support that and even say that is actually the case. I can't even believe that, right? But come to think of these agencies that come in here and register local partners and enter into these contracts with us, right? They are Ghanaians behind them, right? Eventually, they are the ones who will then take us back into the arbitration fora and go and take judgments. Ghanaians are part of it. That's the extent of our patriotism.
Okay.
They are part of it, and then they go and take it.
Kofi says he wants to make a quick intervention to Dr. Dusai's
well, let me just wrap up.
Presentation. Okay, yes, do it.
And also, it tells us that anytime we have these disagreements with our partners, contractual partners, they tend to end up in arbitration fora in the UK, in The Hague, and elsewhere, right? That should tell you a lesson. We are a contracting party. Someone is coming to do work in our country. We don't see the worth of our legal system in being the forum for resolution of this dispute. And then sit there, allow contracts to be drafted, and then the choice of law.
It's because of It's because of the source of the money.
Well, the point is, it should be a give or take situation. Either they accept the terms we are going to put in that we have a competent judiciary. There's a center for arbitration here where experts can equally adjudicate over this.
But you can't control that because you don't give the money. You are not responsible for it.
Well, I'm saying that in the essence of
I get you.
Neocolonialism and how people have stood on their grounds to fight for their people.
And Justice Appointee emphasized that portion.
Yeah. So all the time, the choice of forum clause, the choice of law provisions, something after conflict of laws.
Right.
Yeah. Right. You just don't sit there as docile as a sheep every time for a foreign contractor that you are going to pay to always come and tell you that it should be based on the unsitual provisions before I come and act. Why? Without that, are you not going to survive?
Even beyond that, the applicable laws, they will often say, we don't want your Ghana.
Yeah. You go and use a foreign law.
You know,
that British law or whatever law. And then we are hoodwinked onto it and we are challenged. We need to have a wake-up call among public officials that these amounts that we are losing because of your actions and inactions, how is that impacting on the people in Samuraboy? If you meet some persons, I mean, you know, my background, we don't know a lot about. How I used to commute from Bangkok, 6 miles to Fiji to sell baskets before I can eat. On foot. Because if you use your tiny amount for transport and carry that basket, you will not earn anything. You see, so when, with that kind of experience, you get to a position. I've gone to the north. I've seen the deprivation. Right? If you get the opportunity, you then maximize this to serve the needs of the people.
That's right.
So that we don't allow these kinds of leakages to drain the national coffers as against the interest of
We'll return to look at that, because there are people who are saying there should be personal responsibility for those who may have been found to have been derelict in some of these things, particularly when the amounts involved can take care of our free SHS with an expansion of the free SHS, with free food, free everything for the peoples. And we'll be happy as a country, can take care of our roads, the schools that are without, you know, shelter and all of that. Kofi, what's your intervention? Very quick, so I take a break and return to this issue.
My intervention quickly is that, look, my brother Poku is making some arguments, but let us situate this thing properly. This whole point about we were not ready, that the environment is dusty, that kind of thing, has never been said anywhere. It is not in consideration. It is never a reason, and it is not even a good enough reason to bring in a platform like this. It destroys the whole argument. Traffic lights work in this country. There are cameras outside that are working, everything, and none of the parties. We are looking at a situation where. But you will agree,
won't you, that the point he raises is also germane?
It's not germane in this context. This is a real situation. There are no hypotheticals. The point that traffic lights won't work in this environment or outside cameras will not work in this environment, it's not a good point, because they are there, they are working today as we speak. And what I'm saying is that we have a real situation where in a few weeks we'll be stuck with $55 million. Nobody raises this argument. The more important issue is that if that is the reason, then when we cancel it, we should not be re-awarding it. The issue of this contract is not that it's been cancelled because we have dust in the system, is that it has been re-awarded improperly. And some people with their eyes open did it in such a way that Ghana now has the liability, and we are likely to face that $55 million debt. And please, it's clear that there were warnings from within government. I have cited warnings from the Vice President's office and suggestions that we should not do this. There were warnings from the Aegis Department that we should watch this, all right? And many others. If even we needed to cancel this, I think we could have done it in a way that would not leave us liable to pay $55 million because of all the deprivations he's talking about. Something we don't have all the time to go into this.
And the things that people are hesitant to talk about,
go into this matter, we clearly
you hold it there.
I'm interested in avoiding it.
Going to hold it there. Yes.
Doctor, there are certain matters.
You need to do that quickly because
that clearly you appear to be speaking out of context. The GC plant was to provide us with a maximum of 107 megawatts. Yeah. The agreement anticipated 92% of that. Over a 1 year period, that plant was supposed to be providing you with 1,181.28 megawatts. Now you are saying that you are going to pay 80 million a year. If you divide 80 million by 1,181, I don't even talking about capacity and other charges.
You've done the calculation already.
That will give you 67. That will give you $67,723 per megawatt of power. It cannot be.
Okay.
Then that's two.
Yes, quick.
No, but so what you are saying has no foundation.
Don't be responding. I need to take a break.
You said there was no financial foundation, Doctor? Who set up ESLA? What was ESLA intended to do? Doctor, what did you do apart from securitizing ESLA? If there was no financial foundation.
But I'm saying, what I said was that
you see,
the architecture.
Because, no,
right?
that is the architecture. Doctor, but that is the architecture.
Wasn't, right? And also the problem we had.
Doctor, that was the architecture. That was the architecture.
We take a break. We'll be right back.
That was the architecture on which to write to solve the problems. And that's exactly what you did.
A NewsFile is brought to you by the Candace
And the plan was for 4 years, not 10 years.
And close as a partner. MTN everywhere you go. Ashesi University educating ethical and entrepreneurial leaders for Africa. Duroplus, where Duroplus goes, water flows. Heaven mosquito spray and coil. Pleasant on humans, tough nightmare on insects. And Napa Foods, it is tasty. Dubious Industries. Robert & Sons Limited Optical Services, your comprehensive eye care services provider. We'll be right back. You're welcome back. This is NewsFile. It's your most authoritative news analysis platform, and here on NewsFile, we put Ghana first. I'll soon share some views on this matter with you, but let's go to the phone lines and speak to Dr. Alex Mould. Okay, right. It's brought to you by the kind sponsorship of Bank of Africa, strong as a group and close as a partner. MTN everywhere you go. Ashesi University educating ethical and entrepreneurial leaders for Africa. Duroplus, where Duroplus goes, water flows. Having mosquito spray and coil. Pleasant on humans, tough nightmare on insects. And Napa Foods, it is tasty. DBS Industries. Robert & Sons Limited Optical Services, your comprehensive eye care services provider. And very interesting messages coming in, some of them very passionate. But one that I really love in support of the advice that Dr. Eduse, Dr. Puku Duse said is that, and this is coming from an arbitration expert, it says that this is what we really need to do. It is what is described as judicial neocolonialism, and we need to liberate ourselves from it. Always going to the taking disagreements without dictating how some of the things ought to be done. Right. So, yes, Mr. Mould, thank you very much for joining us.
Well, thank you for putting me on, and thank you to all your...
Great. So quickly, let's hear you straight to the point.
Straight to the point is, with regards to the judgment debt, first of all, the international contractor took us to court because the bottom line is we canceled the contract. I don't think we did the right thing. I don't think we had the right information to take a decision. And if we did, I don't think the right decision was taken because all we had to do was call in the contractor and find out exactly how we could renegotiate if we believe that his rate of return was in excess of what IPP should get. Another misconception we have is why did we have these IPPs? And another misconception is why do we have so many PPAs? The PPA is just an initial letter that is required by the financial institutions to even contemplate whether they will finance or not. So many of these PPAs are not going to take place. Secondly, if a PPA becomes an IPP and it gets the financing, the other PPAs will go away because no financial institution is going to finance the development of a generation plant that is going to generate too much electricity in the country, given that ECG is broke. ECG does not have the financial wherewithal. ECG is not able to meet its commitments, and that's a PURC issue which I'll talk about later. So you're not going to get the financing to do that. So the fact that 10 or 15 PPAs were signed doesn't mean all of them are going to come into being. Another misconception we have is that we went around signing a lot of these emergency powers without understanding the power demand, and we we had excess power. That is not. First of all, if you remember in 2015, 2013, 2014, Akosombo was not generating more than 2 or 3 of its turbines. That means we were getting less than 50% of Akosombo's available power. Now, available power doesn't mean that you can have it. It means that they have the capacity to produce, but that doesn't mean that they will produce. So that is another misconception as well. So the World Bank, people may not know this, but the World Bank supported 4 IPPs to be built in Ghana. That is because IPPs, for them to get financial investment decision from the financial institutions, needed to provide some sort of comfort from Ghana government. The Ghana government will pay, given that ECG most likely will be able to collect enough money to pay them the money. So the government has to give what we call a GCSA, or which is a government consent agreement, a support and consent agreement. This consent agreement is not just a mouth. You have to back it with something. The World Bank backed Ghana's support and consent agreement by guaranteeing it that because of the ENI SGN project, they wanted an off-taker for the 1,000 megawatts. And as that, they looked at the plants in Ghana. We needed to bring in about 1,000 megawatts to make sure that we will be able to deliver the gas for that project that the World Bank was guaranteeing $750 million to take place. So it was a requirement of the World Bank. And I am shocked. The World Bank has been so quiet in all of this deliberation, given that the World Bank supported the Ghana government to give a GCSA to these IPPs to be built. Now, if you believe that we have too much take or pay, which I don't believe we have, and I don't believe that the Minister of Finance was genuine when he said he has paid $500 million, or he pays $500 million annually for excess capacity in this country. Remember, when you have a capacity, you have to add your requirement. So let's say our demand is 3,000 megawatts of electricity. We have at least 3,000, nearly 3,600 megawatts of electricity with a 20% reserve requirement, reserve margin. So before you can say you have excess capacity, you have to look at the capacity that is not only available, or that is not only available, but readily available to produce the electricity. Now, we don't have, that amount that is readily available. Akosombo may come up and go down, so you have to take that one off. You have to at least understand how much electricity we produce from Akosombo on a continuous basis. We is a peaking facility, so you can't add that one, as a reliable all the time. So we for peaking. So you have to do the full analysis to see if it's available. So take or pay is a two-way street. Most of the contracts we have, most of the IPPs, although initially they were take or pay, they cannot be take or pay right now. TAPCO cannot take or pay. For you to be take or pay, it means that you have produced and you have not defaulted in any of your obligations, or you have cured your default in your obligation to make your plants readily available 24/7 for the amount, the nominated amount you promised to give us.
Okay.
I don't see any plant that has been able to do that.
All right.
So we need to be very truthful to ourselves. We need to understand that this 1,000 megawatts that we signed, there were more than 8 IPPs that were readily available for us to sign a contract with them and give them a GCSA. But the World Bank only supported 4. This 4 is what we have been relying on for electricity in this country.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much for your intervention, Alex Mould. A couple of messages here, and then I'll get my guests to give us their brief closing comments, generally or specifically as to how to avoid judgment debt. And we have done this over and again on this platform, but we have to continue to do until we can really avoid them, as in unnecessary ones. Kofi Amwa says, Boatie Jako in his sign-out said, quote, when the dust settles, unquote, could he have known then that someone must have polluted the air of sanity? Now you see, we judge governance by debt levels. Charles Rekubrobe again says that intoxicated euphoria to flex newly acquired power and undue haste to redeem patronage investments are the two main reasons why we keep incurring judgment debts. Yeah, there are some who say it's actually a business, lucrative one for politicians. And as you read through Justice Apau's sole commissioner's work, he refers to undue political influence. And he refers to politicians not more than once, not only once, but several times. And actually, in his recommendations to preventing judgment debt, he includes taking account of a political campaign funding bill. Political campaign funding bill. So you know that by that, you can make an extraction that some of that, this thing is a business that goes into political campaign funding. All right, then Peter says that we all can hear and feel the passion and pain in the voice of Inusa Fuseni. Our sympathies with him. God help him. Then you have Kweku Enchibuesiako. He says these judgment debts will stop when we start surcharging public officers whose acts or omissions. Which public officer are you going to surcharge with $130 plus million? We start surcharging public officers whose acts or omissions lead to judgment debt, so long as they have nothing to lose and still go home with their salaries, allowances, per diems, and ex gratia. Public officials will continue to act recklessly and carelessly, and sometimes with personal interest ahead of national interest in causing these judgment debts. Abdul Razak Usman in Koforidia says the parochial interest of our politicians who defy all signs of danger has led us to incur dubious judgment debts. All right. So in a minute, let's start with you, Kofi Bento. In a minute, how would you say that we can avoid this? In addition to what Justice Apau has, told us in his work, and government actually issued a white paper accepting all these good things to do. Kofi, please unmute and let's hear you in a minute.
Something we need to take a very serious view. We need to take a serious view to the proposition that judgment debts are contrived. They are not real. And like I said, I got calls when we were making these representations, and the person was telling me that, look, what makes you think that this is not something that was planned? And you have made suggestions to that effect, which is why we look at this more closely, in the forum that we are planning. Now, it should be also clear that this thing is not about performance. It seems there was a jostle or a tussle over the ministry to oversee this, and they were moving from contractor to contractor. As we speak, the person who was working on the project and actually delivering has not been paid and has been taken off. And the person who they are looking to re-award it to has not even started work. It's about procurement. It is not about the performance of the job itself.
Okay.
I want some commitment from Parliament that, look, we will try and save Ghana the $55 million because that's very possible. And then we will probe the judgment debts that we have because it didn't look, or it doesn't look, or we have not seen a serious defense of the state interest, against these judgment debts.
Thank you very much. And Justice Apau mentions that in his recommendations. Yes, Dr. Fukoduse, what do you say? Among others, Justice Apau also spoke about national debt management policy, so that we can have an eye and continue to monitor what goes on. Yeah.
Well, I'll begin from where Mr. Bento ended, that we have not generally put up a strong defense to these matters. I think that maybe he may have that experience with the XY administration because of happenings of Wyoming and the rest. But in the case of this arbitration, right, one of the persons we appointed, they appointed one, we appointed one, and then there was a neutral president. was Professor Albert Fiajo. He was the chair of the Constitutional Review Committee. And he still didn't rule in our favor because our case wasn't adjudged to be right. So it also fits into the position that when you are appointed to a position, you can do your work as required of you. And public officials must be diligent in saving the national interest all the time.
Great. And the important point you mentioned about liberating ourselves from the neo-colonial, mentality of where the seat of arbitration and all the choice of law should be. Yes. Honorable Yunus Afuseni, Jasper mentions confiscation of private properties, etc., of culpable public officers.
Well, that is a given. I mean, if it is established beyond doubt that your private property was acquired through the use of dubious means, I mean, it's liable to confiscation.
The reference is that
he also wanted a permanent.
That is a matter.
He also wanted a permanent oversight body.
Yes, I think that I agree with him. And in many other jurisdictions, big contracts are located at the presidency. The president must supervise the award of big contracts so that we can allocate responsibility. We can hold persons in that office, in the in the office set up by the president, responsible for such things. So I agree with him.
Thank you.
You talk
so
about
very much. Thank you so very much. It's isophoton. Thank you very much. This all time will allow us. We had briefly on the show Dr. E. Kofi Abochi, Dean, UPSA Law School. Unfortunately, there were difficulties, so he couldn't join us for the throughout. Yunus Afuseni is lawyer and member National Democratic Congress. Dr. Puko Dusay, member New Patriotic Party NPP Legal Communications Team. And somebody says if he were nominated for Energy Ministry, he will go acquaint and acquit himself very well. He doesn't have to be an energy expert. Kofi Bento is lawyer and senior vice president, Imani Africa. Thank you all for your time. I'm Samson Ladi Anyanini. Join me tomorrow 2 p.m. on The Law Show. We'll have an interesting discussion for you.